first horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are discussing Critters 3 from 1991. But first, most importantly, we have a special guest with us this week. He's the host of Open Pike Night, John Bolds. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be here to talk Critters 3, which was the first one I ever saw. And I actually had to pause your Halloween, your horror movie wrap up episode to come record this. So,
perfect.
I'm looking forward to being here and chatting with you guys tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us.
We have doubled our Johns, and so I don't know what that means in terms of.
He's the bolder one, obviously.
There we go. There you go. Right. So, what is your kind of history with the franchise as a whole, and what made Critters 3 jump out to you? Because as we were mentioning before we started recording, I always kind of dig it when someone mentions a sequel that is not the go-to sequel. And I feel like Critters 2 is the go-to sequel in this series. And I was like, he wants to talk about Critters 3. That's even better. So,
so Critters 3, like I said, it was the first one I saw. And that is simply because when I went to Smith's grocery store and the VHS aisle, Critters 1 and 2 were rented. And so I had seen the covers. I mean, I think they're pretty iconic covers.
Oh, yeah.
Just the full body shots of Critters. And I was like, all right, Critters 3, I'll start with this one. And, I was a little bit younger than Leo DiCaprio was at the time he made the film. So it was, man, I gotta say, his shirts in this movie there. I'll start with one tangent there. His shirts in this movie gave me lots of flashbacks, and I miss those designs.
Nice.
But I started
only
there.
90s kids will get this.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. I started there and then actually went back to Critters 2. I still haven't. I didn't watch Critters until I was listening to your guys' coverage.
Oh, wow.
I think I remember enjoying this movie, and then I think the most memorable thing about any of the Critters films is when they all jump on Lee in the second movie, like that shot of just all of launching out of nowhere. Like,
Yep.
That has seared itself into my brain for 30 years now.
Yeah. So when you were younger and you officially picked up that Critters 3 box, you weren't concerned about not knowing any lore or anything like that, going, skipping past 1 and 2. You're just like,
no, I think it was.
I think
it was kind of a forbidden. Like, I grew up in a family with 5 sisters, and so being able to able to pick a video for myself to watch, I'm getting one of the Critters movies. I want to see these movies, and yes.
Perfect. And John, you had not seen this one either, correct?
No, not seen a single Critters.
Yep.
And I've especially not seen this one.
Yes, this was a new one for me. I had seen the first 2, like I mentioned before, but we're in unexplored territory for myself as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny that you associate the early VHS tape, because this was one of the early New Line home entertainment VHS lines. This was a straight to VHS movie, no theatrical distribution. As I always say, that's not a knock on it necessarily. It can still be great. But this one, after the fumble that was Critters 2, not making hardly any money at the box office, they were like, you get videotape time now. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Well, it's my understanding also that this was let's say, Wishmaster, in that it was the 3 and 4 were shot pretty much like back to back.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way this movie ends, that makes complete sense. Like, that, or I mean, I would say that we'll get there. We'll get there when we get there. I love the end of this movie. So
yeah. So they wanted to do, the classic, well, not classic, because I don't think it's been done that many times, but prep 2 scripts at the same time, try to shoot them as back to back as possible. And, I was watching some behind the scenes footage, and of course the Chiodo brothers were just like, it always seemed like a good idea at first, and we thought we had a handle on it. But once you start doing that, it's still hard as hell. So it's just like, I get the idea of making everything under one budget umbrella and maybe having the same crew, but it doesn't make anything easier. In fact, it probably makes things harder in a lot of cases if you're if you're running logistics between like two sets or like trying to save like I know later on they have a big deal about like a lot of the critters got destroyed in part 3 and they were like, dude, we needed those for part 4. What the heck? You know, like you can't throw beans on every critter. We need those for number 4 later on.
You got to draw from the beanless barrel.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there a bleach stain on this one? What the hell, guys?
But my favorite bit to understand what this was written by a returning champion on this show, David J. Showell. This was his follow-up to the Texas Chainsaw Part 3. And before he did The Crow. So
yeah, this was directly after Leatherface.
Right.
Okay. It's an interesting journey.
Yeah, he said he was literally just hanging out in the New Line Cinema offices like you could kind of do back then, which sounds awesome. And some guy walked in and basically just said, like, you want to rate Critters 3? He's like, yeah, I guess so. Sure, I'll do it.
I've got a free hour.
Yeah.
I can have this over to you.
Yeah, no problem.
This one does get like, I don't want to say a drop in quality, but like after you've gone to the whole town of Grover's End in part 2, this one is much more localized on kind of one building, which happens when your budget drops.
Yeah, I think you see a lot more that kind of pulling in, but then also just like it's so much more workman-like than the other ones. Like it's just pretty straightforward of just set up the camera and capture it. Let's go.
Which I definitely agree with. But also there are some sequences in here. I'm like, man, this is well shot. Like this is a compelling little set piece. And with it being one building, they used the hell out of that building. We go to every floor and every apartment in that building pretty much. And yeah, it's they used what they had.
It's a real The Raid in that way, I guess you could say. Yeah. Just like fighting your way up to the top of the roof.
Biting your way up.
Biting your way, yes. But yeah, this movie opens with a family headed on a road trip, and we've got a small family unit of dad headed up by John Calvin, who's trying to... can someone explain to me what exactly is going on with the family? Are they moving to a new town? The dad is going to keep going. Is that the case?
I think so. My understanding is the new job he's taking, they're like, oh, you don't have to go for your job. I think he's going to be a train engineer because the engineer hat that the one critter is wearing and then the son is wearing in the end. So it's a travel job. It's a job where he's going to have to be away for a long periods of time. And the kids are going to have to stay with the older couple.
Okay.
I think they were just on a road trip, on a vacation, and we get one mention of a mom. Well, 2 mentions of a mom that died a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
This character is so confusing to me because I'm like, is he a good dad or is he a bad dad? And finally, I think I settled on this is Jeff Lebowski. If he actually had to care for any of the kids he might have fathered at some point and tried to get it a little bit together.
Right.
Like, hey, and also he's watching bowling at one point. I'm like, oh, he's Lebowski, but he's has to care for kids.
Yeah, I kind of took it as that this is a guy that wants to break up with his family and is trying to figure out how. Because like he's trying to put it on them at the beginning where he's like,
Dad, vacation was fine.
Yeah, fine. Let's face it, Annie. It's just not the way that it was.
Yeah, we went on this road trip, but you know, it wasn't the same as it once was. Trying to sow that discord to have the kids be like, yeah, this doesn't work now that mom's dead. Maybe we should just kind of go our separate ways. And that doesn't work. And then after that, he is just full on like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I am checked out of this relationship.
Yeah.
But he's not like mean about it. He's not abusive.
No,
He just,
no.
But then I would think as a kid, I'd be like, oh man, she just wants her, her dad around. It's like, okay, but as him, I'm like, you're about to start a new travel job tomorrow. Yeah. Drink some beers and watch some bowling and relax. I have worked a job where you travel. I've worked many. Yeah. And I kind of sympathize with him, but I seriously, I'm like, is he good or not?
Yeah. Cause the kids are just desperately just like, please, let's spend some quality time together. It's like, no, beer.
Yeah.
It's beer time.
Beer and spaghetti. So they end up stopping at a rest stop, and I've never seen so many inciting incidents in a movie happen at a rest stop before, because you get every character that you're going to have throughout the rest of this film almost here. We meet Briggs, I believe, the guy who we later find out is the apartment manager. I do love his entrance because he comes out in this like beautiful big bird yellow sweater, holding a cocktail, and he just says,
"Bald and flat. I feel for you, man. Sometimes life really sucks, doesn't it?"
I mean, I concur, but also you look like you're kind of happy.
My man is dressed like a sexy pack of Nathan's hot dogs.
Oh yeah.
He's got this awesome little shaved down mustache, looking like Vincent Price's jock older brother.
Yeah.
There you go.
Vincent Price, John Waters, like, who are you supposed to be here, man?
Yeah, you just moved up the butch slider on John Waters to the max. But yeah, this guy's just an asshole. And that is, he's also Leonardo DiCaprio's dad.
Yes. Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio being in this movie is so funny. And I know we all got to start somewhere, but it is very funny seeing Leonardo DiCaprio in this.
Did you know going into this, John, that he was in this?
And I mean, I saw him in it, and then it wasn't until years later I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He was this guy who's getting to be pretty big in Hollywood was in that little movie. Yeah,
totally.
And he was on that TV show Growing Pains at the time.
I never watched that.
See, me neither.
Yeah,
that's just what I've heard. Word on the street.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he is one of those actors who he looks down on this movie and just says like, every actor does something bad in their past. And I'm also just like, did you really care because you were a kid? Like, couldn't you just be like, man, I had a blast on set, like playing with those little critters, and like, it's upsetting when someone to just be like, look down on something because it's horror or like kind of schlocky, where he has the opportunity to spin that easily, because I'm sure he had a blast on this movie.
If you are, like we I think we might have even talked about it on this podcast, like Jamie Lee Curtis talking about doing Virus, and like I do these shitty movies so that when someone goes, I was in this, you're like, you were in that? I was in Virus. Sure. It's like when you're at that point in your career, sure. But if you're just starting out, it'd be like, whatever. I was in Critters 3.
And like, John, you have a background in this too. Like, did a lot of short films when I was in college, and there are some that is like, I know I cannot let this see the light of day.
Oh, absolutely.
I am ashamed of zero of them. It's like, have they aged horribly? Of course. I loved making each one of those, and will always cherish the time with my friends. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Suck it up, DiCaprio.
Yeah.
But he does look like a young Leonardo DiCaprio in this. Like, it's unmistakable.
The mannerisms are already starting to establish. Like, it's like, okay, he's already doing the things he will be famous for.
Having sex with 25-year-olds.
Yeah. The kids are starting to play around in the area while the dad takes care of like a blown tire. And a frisbee is thrown wide, and all of a sudden Charlie in some sort of flight suit is launched just straight out of a hole. So I don't know if he was like hiding in there, if he had some sort of device that shot him out, but pretty good entrance for Charlie.
Yeah. Because the little boy, Johnny, throws a frisbee, and then it cuts to the frisbee traveling in the opposite direction. Yeah. Which was
that kid has an arm too. Both he and Leo have an arm. Right. Damn, I wish I as an adult could throw a frisbee that far.
But
totally.
It goes in the woods, and they find it like it's on some grass or something, and it turns out that was his hidey hole. Yeah, he's down there doing
at a rest
Charlie
stop?
work. I don't know,
because last we saw he got just left behind by Ugg, right?
And he was made sheriff of a town.
And deputized.
But now he's gone, apparently just fully rogue. He is hunting critters, and that's what he's doing.
I guess what happened in that interim, because like you even see a newspaper clipping later of him in the sheriff's outfit.
Oh, right.
And it's like, is Grover's Bend now just this lawless hellscape?
He's like, I just want to give up being a cop and just go back to shooting intergalactic monsters. Is like more the life for me.
Last time, I think the tall man got Grover's Bend. I mean, he just moved through. Yeah, he rolled through.
Yeah, there you go.
and I mean, credit to Charlie. Like, he has been through some serious nonsense. 5 years still sober. Yeah, congratulations, still Charlie. Sober. Way to go.
There you go.
His arc, like, especially by the last shot of this film, like, this guy's arc is amazing. town drunk to bounty hunter to ecologist, intergalactic ecologist. Like, this is fantastic. I love it.
I definitely think that we're going to need to see kind of a Logan style gritty, serious last ride for Charlie.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
he deserves it.
Yeah, they do some weird things with his character towards the end.
Yeah,
I see what they were going for, but it comes off as weird, as pretty unfortunate. But we'll get there when we get there.
He's hearing buzzing all around him, and he's trying to convince these 7 little kids about it. And he then tells the story of Grover's Bend when he first saw the UFO. That basically just recaps part 2 and part 1. Although it's not really in order. It's kind of like interspersed throughout.
Yeah, they start with the rabbit costume. I'm like, oh man, we're going all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. So that must have been helpful for you as a kiddo. Yeah. Just being like, oh, now I understand Critters 3. I mean, mission accomplished right there. So it's not as egregious as, like, say, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 of being 45 minutes in length. But, it's a good solid chunk, but that's a classic move in these kind of movies. Got a critter cam out of nowhere headed towards the family truck with a flat tire. And Charlie gives the kid a little crystal. It glows green when danger is around. So it's very much like Sting, Bilbo's sword that is given to him when orcs are around.
1-to-1.
Yeah.
He said he had like dozens of them.
Oh.
And I was like, wait. I haven't rewatched Critters 2 with this. Okay.
No.
Never been shown before.
No.
Yeah. This is new gear, that he's acquired.
It's been, who knows what, like we said, who knows what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, and they didn't really need them. They seem like these crystals are like early warning systems that bad things are going to happen.
It's almost just like it's the only thing that little kid has to do in the entire movie is just walk around with that crystal when it glows green.
And that haircut, yeah.
As Dad finishes up with the tire, he gets a handful of green critter blood on him, and then they cruise on into Grover's Bend. So there's some critters that have like stowed away like little eggs underneath the truck here.
Like Furiosa under the war rig, or
there you go.
Robert De Niro in Cape Fear.
There you go. Yes. This kind of annoying punk kid is carrying around a fish in a fishbowl. His name is Frankie, and I guess he's like the repairman in the apartment building.
Property manager, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's full of piss and vinegar, I guess. Everything he says is sarcastic and with a pretty heavy accent from somewhere.
Iris apartment complex, Frank Longo at your service.
Boy, he's definitely like, oh, this actor thinks he has perfected this accent, and so he wants to really get it locked in.
Yeah, I was like leaning really heavy on like, no. It's the character that's this annoying. Like, there's no way that this actor is he's actually nailing it, because I don't think since Frankie Cheeks in Final Destination 3 have I disliked a Frankie, an on-screen Frankie nearly as much.
Marcia, we're introduced to her. She pulls up on a motorcycle, and of course, between Marcia and Frankie, they have some insulting banter back and forth. It's just one of those classic things. Yeah, it's just like,
check your weapons at the door. It's the chick that walks like a man.
Dating outside our species now, huh?
Oh, very funny. Very, very funny.
Yeah. Can you imagine a woman riding a motorcycle? How crazy.
The family pulls into park, and for whatever reason, they have no brakes, which of course their truck just slams into another car. Did Dad, cut the brake line while he was performing, the surgery on the truck earlier?
Or the critters bit it or something, or.
Okay.
I think that's supposed to be the implication, but it definitely seems like scene missing. Yeah. Like there was some cohesive part that just never got done, or like didn't work in edit or something.
We just need a slightly wacky set piece to happen. Brakes going out on a truck. That's always funny.
Because it's also, how much did he know in advance? Was it something where it's like, oh, I guess the brakes are no longer working, because they are cruising.
Yeah.
They are like, really, they're going downhill and then turning on this thing. And they're just like, hey, everyone, get out of the way. We're going to stop. We're going to run into a car where there's a crowd of people around. That's the best way to deal with this brake situation.
And since they are, good classic early to mid 80s rolling iron, you're talking 5 minutes with a hammer max to fix all the damage on both these cars. Like, everybody's got horrible whiplash, but cars are fine.
Well, that's even when because there's a guy moving out of the building as they're careening towards them, and then afterwards the dad's just like, hey, no brakes.
I'm sorry, man.
Like that's like a normal thing. Like you know how it goes. when you're doing 60 with no brakes.
Yep.
As everybody settles in to the crash itself, a bunch of critters jump down off the chassis and run into the apartment, which later Frank finds a little hole in the window where they broke through. The daughter, Annie, finds an older couple, Mrs. and Mr. Menges.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the grandmother is played by the great Frances Bay. Who do we know her from?
Happy Gilmore. Hands down, Happy Gilmore's grandma. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Or Mrs. Chalfont from Twin Peaks.
Yep, that's where I went.
Yep.
Tremont Chalfont. Also in The Mouth of Madness. She has that great creepy part as the hotel clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's got such a great look for horror stuff.
She was your go-to old lady for a while in the 80s, 90s.
Annie describes their trip and mentions that she ran into a weird guy in Grover's Bend, and the older guy, the grandfather, overhears, and he seems to be a bit of a conspiracy theorist. So he's got all these like books and newspaper clippings and stuff like that, and he thinks that he knows he can get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and he does. He actually has the receipts.
That's true.
I have read about this. Yeah, it's fun to see hard copy conspiracy theory going on.
Yeah,
there you go.
Back when conspiracy theories were good,
right?
It took some guts to believe in conspiracy theories. Like someone had to print the stuff and distribute it instead of going
just
online.
Have a thought.
Yeah. Frank is screaming at someone on the phone as we get more critter cam with their little moaning sounds off to the side. He thinks that there are rats that he's supposed to get rid of. So this starts this whole running thing because you can't show the critters right away. You got to wait till about the half-hour mark or so. So everybody thinks that they're just hearing rats in the apartment building.
But it seems like he's also releasing rats.
Because he has a cage of rats, but then there are also rats loose.
Because they're trying to get people to move out of the building.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be like paying people to locate because they want to like tear down the building or whatever. But the landlord is like, hey, if we can just get these people to move out because everything's so crappy, then we don't have to pay them.
Right. And that is, I mean, one, that's a real tactic. That is something that absolutely happens, which leads us to the point of like, oh, okay, that's what this film is about. Like this is, I don't know if they were trying to kind of do the Candyman thing. Like if they're trying to bring some kind of social message to this. Not the greatest way of it being delivered, but I can respect it.
Yeah, sure. Frank is downstairs in the laundry room where I swear like a good 40% of this movie takes place in. But he finds a bra in the laundry room.
I love my work.
He may be awful, but he appreciates some good lingerie.
Yep. And my notes just say, and can the critters just finally take care of this guy, please, already?
We're spending a lot of time with Frank.
We are. Yeah, we are.
Critter does jump out and bites him on the neck. And, of course, he holds it as close to him as possible as the Oscar winning performance, as we always call it.
Automatic Oscar.
Yep. Yeah. Holding the creature onto your face as you flail around. He manages to stab it and throw it off, but it just comes back and just starts biting him like in the stomach there.
But the critters in this one are a lot sturdier because they would have just exploded into the merest touch.
Yeah. Yeah. They've definitely gotten tougher overall, and we'll get to their hijinks later, but it definitely seems like they padded this movie. It's an 84-minute movie, and there's at least 10 minutes of padding in this movie just for time. And you got to do that with your critters. You got to put them on full display. And I like the way that they do that.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of wonder, like, when you're doing two movies like back to back, if it's something like, oh gosh, we can't spend the money here because we know we're going to need it there.
Oh,
and so stuff gets more compressed in the first movie in order to make that second one happen.
Yeah.
So you're like, we'll just pad this out. We can't afford to have a scene of brakes being cut. Instead, we'll just have a critter fart later. It'll be fine.
A stunt woman hang upside down for easily 20 minutes straight.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't just like that person. Maybe they just did not care for that person. Let's guess what? We rewrote the script. You're hanging upside down now.
For the last 30% of the movie. Yeah. A critter is in the laundry chute and some underwear falls on him because of course it does. He somehow manages to propel himself up towards the chute.
Yeah, they got boost powers now.
Yeah, this is a new critter power. It just reminded me of, and I haven't played a Sonic the Hedgehog game in 30 years, I don't think. But I remember, you just charge up and then you go. I think that was a new power now.
It was also the first of 2 spoken lines by the critters in the whole film. All he says is dessert.
And then the other one, then Blackie's in trouble.
Yeah,
Blackie's in trouble, but also PU after the fart joke.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there more? Yeah. Very, very
button,
economic
you know?
with their,
These taciturn critters.
Yeah. Then a critter intercepts a phone call. So I guess Leo's dad, this is where we find out that Leo's stepdad knows Frank, the punk. And there he is. Leo is playing Game Boy in the car, and he's not using the little Game Boy light.
Nope. He doesn't have the magnifier or the light or the little fold-out speakers. We all know. Oh, yeah. All of us know this is BS.
You can see how neglected he is as a child. Yeah. That is shorthand for that.
Yes.
But I do like when the critter, because the landlord calls Frankie to be like, hey, go do more bad stuff. Phone is ringing and the critter like lifts the receiver, but then just starts eating it. Yeah. So it's not like he's like trying to intercept communications. He's just going to eat the phone.
Yeah. This isn't Gremlins 2 that much. It's like they definitely want it to be Gremlins 2, but it's like, nah, we're not going to actually have him sing a musical number.
We're just going to eat a phone.
Yep.
Yeah. As you always say, John, like, these critters can fly spaceships.
Yeah.
But answering a phone,
why not?
Well,
not
to be fair, these ones were just born. They did not have the.
Oh, there you go.
The socialization that the other ones did. They didn't go to pilot school yet.
Fair enough. Okay.
All they know how to do is eat.
But they're very worried about Blackie.
Yes.
They have enough of a social structure. Yeah.
Grandpa explains to the kids that the aliens are among us and that they actually killed a sheriff in an Easter Bunny suit. And I kind of just love that as a known microcosm of just like hanging out with Grandpa for the first time. It's just like, oh, this is what you believe in. Those 3 things.
Well, yeah, I believe in aliens, lower taxes.
Right. And all sheriffs wearing Easter Bunny outfits.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice little button for like, I'm sure this story is great, Grandpa. Oh, and he was dressed like an Easter Bunny. Okay, of course he was.
And he just launched himself through a window for some reason. Sure.
Sure, Grandpa.
Sure. John recognizes Charlie in the newspaper and then notices that his crystal is glowing green.
Yep.
The little boy is. Yeah. The danger is afoot.
This kid, this actor, I mean, I know him from this and one other movie where he basically plays the same kind of role in Kindergarten Cop. And he's the kid who climbs the tower at the end. Like, man, this kid made his money like hanging off high places when he was a little actor.
There's 2 of them. It's Christian and Joseph Cousins.
He's there.
Yeah, he certainly takes up space and can hold objects.
Yep. Sure. A woman named Rosalie, who I think we've seen like a little bit beforehand. She's kind of a stereotypical, like, I don't know, she's supposed to be like the gossip or something like that. She might as well be carrying around a rolling pin, with hair rollers in her hair type of thing. So Rosalie.
Yeah. Bunny slippers, hair rollers, like house dress.
Yeah. She's the busybody. Yeah.
Goes downstairs back into the laundry room. And this is where I just wrote, there's a lot of laundry related shenanigans in this movie. It just back and forth. She's eating a donut. She puts the donut down. And of course, when she goes back for it, it's gone. She finds little green slime and blood, and a critter shoots a spear right at her bunny slipper. So do you think that the critter was aiming at the bunny slipper, thinking it was a sentient?
Oh, he was threat detected by those bunny.
Yeah, a sentient being. Yeah, because they make it a point to kind of dolly back on her bunny slippers at one point when she first walks down the stairs.
Yeah.
So
there's a reverse shot of it being like, oh. No, and shooting a spine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like in any boss battle, you want to kill little minions first because they're just going to ping you with damage and just get them taken care of and then take on the big gossip.
A bunch more critters start rolling after her, but Annie comes down to rescue her, but does manage to see some critters eating Frank's body. And I actually really did like that shot. There was something creepy about that shot where you really couldn't see most of Frank's body. I think the critter even turns around. It's all like covered in blood and stuff.
Like bloody face. They're all, and it's such a slow devouring, like compared to other critters. Like, oh yeah, it seems like they can just bite right through stuff, no problem, super quick. But they're just like literally dining out on Frank. And I do like we get, again, we just get action set piece that kind of goes somewhere you don't expect with like, oh, one of them gets chemical burns. So they're starting to try and mark them as different threats. Like, oh, how do we set these apart? This one gets bleached a little bit and like burns badly, painfully. So like every time I see it, I feel bad for it for the rest of the movie. Like that has to hurt.
Totally.
Yeah. That one was gnarly because it gets rolls into some bleach. And so it gets a little bit of a white spot in the hair. So it's kind of a vitiligo or I guess Critiligo in this case. But yeah, separates him. And I thought they were going to be like, oh, that's going to be our stripe or
that's exactly what I thought.
But they don't really. It's more just no. This one looks like that now.
Yeah,
That's it.
She does defend herself with a mop at one point. We get that long shot of the camera being mounted on a mop, going back and forth, which is pretty funny.
Yeah,
actually.
just like winging in between a doorway, like just left, right. It goes off for like you could make like a YouTube edit, make that 15 minutes, no problem.
Oh yeah,
there you go. Yeah,
goes on and on, and with the way that Rosie is just moaning and screaming in the background, like, oh my goodness, and somehow has wrapped herself up more in the clothesline after being disentangled from it.
Yes. Annie and Rosalie try to convince the dad that critters exist, and he just won't believe it until finally a group of critters roll up and starts to shoot spears at them. And I was really glad that they didn't elongate this. Like I always find it frustrating in horror movies where we as the audience know that there's a threat and someone just refuses to believe it for like a pointlessly long time. Just like get to the point, So fit with your theory about dads getting knocked out.
Yes, dad. They do incapacitate the dad immediately. Again. And we talked about it earlier. We referenced it earlier, but the dad being a conductor or whatever, I lost my mind at that because they make a reference to him having a job where he travels and then he comes out with a Shining Time Station outfit. God, this is such a busy town job. Conductor? Like, it's ridiculous. And then at the end, when he's like, oh, I guess the trains can get on without me. No, they can't. You're the conductor.
You are needed.
I just like that was just out of left field. I was expecting him to be like a truck driver or something, but he's like, the fact that it was the little hat in the stop, you could see the watch dangling. Oh my God.
Shining Times. Absolutely. It's like, okay. I mean, that's a pretty good job. I bet you could. Yeah.
You got to hang out with Thomas the Tank Engine
path of your children with a job like, cross-country train conductor.
Right.
But yeah, so the critters do attack and take out Dad pretty quickly. And they also, incapacitate him with their spines. And they get Rosie too. And they do something a little bit different this time around, where this time the spines like make you drunk.
Yeah.
Because in the past, it's just been like, I'm hurt. I can't go do anything. But this time, both he and Rosalie are both just like, hey, man, it's cool.
Right.
Do you think you guys can climb a ladder?
No ladder.
We'll go up a ladder tomorrow.
Which adds to your Big Lebowski theory. It's just becoming extra chill.
And picks up a trash can.
Yeah.
Heaves it over her head. Rolls it down the steps, and it hits the critters. Now, there are, two extra good things about this, of course. One, that I love it in a shot where you see the physics of something like going towards a group of little creepies, but then the cut to the shot of all four of them being tossed up in the air.
Just straight up.
Just so good. It's just so cartoony.
Well, and it's intercut with actual bowling. Yeah.
My question is, who's watching the bowling? Like, what are we... The dad is watching the bowling. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, this battery-powered TV is strangely important for that shot, and then for later on when the power is out.
Later on.
Yeah.
But they just did a bowling one in part 2. I don't know, that was 5 years ago. But I was still just like, oh, we're doing this again?
Mm-hmm.
But I also noticed when the critters get flung up in the air that they have limbs this time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like you see legs and arms more than just... tiny little protrusions.
Yeah, the Chiodos were talking about that in some behind the scenes footage, and they were very excited about it because you could just, the animatronics had just come that far in 4 years or something. Mm-hmm. And so they added arms and legs to everything. But of course, with the little servos on the inside, it said every critter was way heavier now. And so when our arms were in there, it was just got even more difficult to articulate because they're puppets themselves. But, you can tell that these guys look sturdier.
They did. They looked much sturdier. Yeah.
In the previous 2. So come a long way in critter tech for these guys.
Early critters.
Yeah.
Leo's dad or stepdad Briggs cuts the phone lines just to freak everyone out. So he's really doubling down on this thing.
Not just to freak everyone out. He specifically says,
You think they're screaming and carrying on now? Just wait till I cut off their communication with their social workers.
Oh, right.
I mean,
yes.
This guy is doing a pure Agent Smith, humans are a virus type speech to his stepson while committing felonies against his tenants.
It's kind of an amazing parallel there, how you have like the young girl wants to connect with her dad. The dad's like, get out of here. And meanwhile, this evil man is trying to be like, won't you just love me, son? Watch me hassle these poor people out of their homes.
And not just all that, he repeats several times up to this point, you've got to learn to do this. This is all going to be yours. So I am teaching you to also do this later on. Mm-hmm. Then he turns off the power.
On himself, too, for some reason.
So they wander around in the dark for a while, and he's yelling that he's the landlord and he wants to evict them. So he's just like putting it out on Front Street at this point, Somehow a TV is still on, so that's got to be the battery-powered TV.
To which he says they must have tapped into the emergency power, which really makes me curious about the infrastructure of this building. Like,
sure.
Did you build an emergency circuit on a separate trunk line to this building?
Yeah, he's got a secret Gus Fring meth lab at the basement. That's why he's trying to get everyone out. They're too close.
Yeah. But I do love this image of the three little critters just sitting there on a couch watching TV. And what are they watching? But Julia Child.
Yep.
and that is one of those like, man, would kids these days even understand who Julia Child is? Like that is such a of the time reference.
And they're so enthralled because she's talking about preparing food that they don't hear the human yelling at his kid directly behind them until the door is slammed on him. And then they turn around like, oh, that's actually a pretty good touch. I respect that. They just have one focus and it is food.
As my partner says to me a lot, you're very food motivated and, very, so that's me. So, I do love the shot of they all three turn around at the same time with the glowing red eyes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now we forgot to mention the part where after the power gets cut, the family and Rosie are found by, why am I mispacing her name all of a sudden? Holding a flare. She is just lit a road flare in the building. And all of a sudden she is a freaking action hero. And I'm going to say right here, starting at this point, she walked so Ellie Sattler in Jurassic Park could run. And I think Jurassic Park owes Critters 3 a lot. And it's not just her character. Once we get to the escape from the apartment, climbing up to the roof, I'm like, this is the control room escape scene from Jurassic Park. They're climbing the ladder. The critters are jumping after them. Like, this is exactly that scene. They're climbing on a duct. Like, it is almost shot for shot in places.
That is perfect.
So I do think Spielberg was like, I'm going to make this better. And that lady is badass and I'm going to put her in my movie.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that because in our Halloween roundup thing, we were talking about this, not just horror, but a lot of modern things are now just all referential and these sort of empty exercises and that. When it's always kind of been like that, but they just stole from stuff people didn't see.
Right.
So Steven Spielberg went, Critters 3. Who the hell's watching that?
Yep.
Now I'm going to make Jurassic Park.
Exactly. Yeah. That changed my mind.
Yeah. Marcia goes, this is the bit with the flare, jams the flare in the critter mouth. So evidently the brother that was articulating that critter, when she jammed the flare into it, it hit him in the hand. But because she was so into it that she didn't like pull the punch. So that scalded his hand. I think he got over it eventually, but he was just like, that really hurt. And because you can see it glowing in the critter mouth, which looks great. It's a great effect.
Yeah. And we also established that critters have human-like rib cages, but they can still roll up in a ball. So it's like, okay, are we talking Marilyn Manson? They had one removed to get this power? Or what's going on?
You beat me to it. I was going.
When they showed the rib cage, I'm like, okay, our anatomy lesson's getting more clear here. Got it.
So Josh makes it to Annie's apartment and they are reunited. They haven't seen each other all movie. Grandpa pulls the spine out of the dad and identifies it as ain't no rats. So Grandpa,
yes, this is not a rat spine that rats usually shoot at people. Speaking of Josh, real quick, one of the like weird pieces of trivia I saw a couple different places that apparently on one of the commentary tracks for Saw, Cary Elwes says he turned down the role of Josh in Critters 3. That makes no sense to me because Princess Bride was way before that. He was already an adult, but like it's also one of those things like, well, did the character change as a result? You know what I mean? Like, was this early on?
Sure.
And Josh was like this different kind of thing or something? But it's just hilarious to watch like this grown dashing man is just hanging out with children this entire time.
Yeah, like I could have been in Critters 3.
Yeah. My glorious feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Critters are trying to get through the door. They're doing that Sonic the Hedgehog roll thing again. They're looking for weapons all around the place, and Grandma brings out a giant meat cleaver, which is pretty great.
Huge. And not just like a cleaver, like it's a two-hander. Like she's going to kill a bull for Colonel Kurtz.
This is an industrial beef farming knife. This isn't a you have around your kitchen. Like, no, were you a butcher? Like, were you at a slaughterhouse? Damn.
Yeah. Are you another Sawyer? Are you, is this Texas Chainsaw coming to Critters?
And usually I am not one for the easy gag of like, hey, it's old people doing young people stuff. Like that doesn't really ever work for me. But somehow she sold that gag of just like pulling out that giant cleaver. I think it's partly just her. She's great. They didn't film it in a dumb way. And that meat cleaver is legitimately pretty gnarly. So all of that actually worked. They spy a crawl space that they need to get to. And then they're just like, OK, we can get to the roof if we go through there.
And I love, like you were mentioning with the older couple, the little lines they have when they're like, well, where does it go? He's like, it goes to the roof if you go that way. She's like, you don't know that. And then once they get up in the attic, she's like, oh, look, it's the blanket that so-and-so gave us. Like, I'm glad they put those in. Just like, not nagging, but definitely the immediate, like, okay, whatever, dude. I've been married to you long enough to know you don't know your directions.
Totally.
Yeah.
Back downstairs in the laundry room, Critter with the flare inside of it manages to catch a whole bunch of laundry on fire. And so that's starting to spread from below. And in the apartment, they're all trying to evacuate through the crawl space to the roof, and they're escaping. And of course, some critters get inside. This is what Spielberg ripped off for Jurassic Park, clearly.
Absolutely.
Marcia punches one right in the face. I mean, I was kind of waiting for that to happen. Like, somebody just needs to clock a critter.
There's a shot in Jurassic Park where a raptor sticks his head up and Ellie kicks it in the face to knock it back down, and the ladder falls. Like,
all right, I'm hoping for a supercut, John.
Absolutely. I should.
Christine Peterson, the director, Steven Spielberg. Well, she might already know.
Yeah,
it's lawsuit time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forgot to mention Christine Peterson at the top real quick. You know, she had done a couple of other features. One of them, Body of Evidence, I've heard of, but I've never seen.
Because she also did one called a slasher called Deadly Dreams that features
it's like,
Juliette Cummings that was Red in Psycho 3. The woman that Jeff Fahey picks up.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Body Chemistry.
Maybe that's the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah. A research project on sexual response leads two doctors to an affair where their deepest passions and darkest fantasies are.
Boy, that sounds like a 90s ass movie if ever.
Yeah. There's a fair amount of those in there.
But then she went on to she was like second unit director and like AD and stuff like that on Tremors and Bill and Ted's, and so she
Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Child.
There you go. Yeah, so it's more like, you know, she tried her hand at directing and went on to have a pretty successful career, just also doing like second unit stuff in horror movies, a lot of them. So, okay, finally we get to some rascaling. This is to me. 3 Critters movies in, like, these are the scenes that I wait for. There's not enough of them, frankly. I can always do with more. And this was pretty late into the movie to get to some rascaling. I was so confused by the dishwashing liquid choice.
Wait, like that he drank it, or the choice of dishwashing liquid?
The choice of the writers and director to put it, like, let's just have him like drink dishwashing liquid.
So it wasn't like that he should have been drinking Dawn instead of Joy.
Oh, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have strong opinions on my dishwashing liquid.
Okay.
I get whatever's $3.99 on the counter at Whole Foods.
I'm like, how do you have a Rascalin sequence where one is drinking soap, so we know there's going to be bubbles coming out at some point. One is eating beans, so we know there's going to be farts. It's like, how do you not have that be the same critter and have a spectacular bubble fart critter launch later in the movie? Like,
this Rascalin did feel a little perfunctory.
Yeah.
Like they kind of didn't know what to do. So they're like, well, let's have this one eat this and let's have this one eat this. And then like when the one like comes out of the cupboard and he's just sprinkling flour on the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay. That just, because it doesn't have that kind of chaotic gremlinsness to it.
It honestly feels like James said with the additional articulation, it feels like a demo reel of like, look what we can do with our animatronics now. Look what we can do with our puppets. Here is a full screen, well lit display of all the cool things they can do.
Yeah. If you need someone to dump flour in your movie, look no further. It can dump all kinds of powders. It's not limited to flour.
They also seem just a little bit slower. And I don't know. It didn't seem as just manic. It just seemed like, I'm going to bend over, lick up some beans on a stovetop instead of just like flipping over another critter on said stovetop, on the griddle.
Or shoving his face into a pie. And
right.
Yeah, I think it maybe has to do with that padding and just that, like, maybe there were some other ideas like, well, we can't mess these critters up. We need them for part 4. So we can't do too much. So actually, just could you have him look at the beans? And we'll just make the audience think that he's eating them later.
Yeah.
This is the bit where the Chiodos like wrapped late at night, and evidently they were the same puppets were supposed to be back on set at 7 a.m. the next morning. And he's like, we're going to be in the workshop literally cleaning beans out of these guys and flour. You'll be lucky to have them by noon. Like it's going to take us all day. So that kind of bummed out their night. I do like it when the critter, this is very gremlinsy, but like, I do like it when a critter does something to another critter and the first one laughs.
Yes.
Like I like that they do things just for the laughs, and I can get behind that.
Yeah. I will say also, John already teased it up that, one is eating beans and then it does a fart. That's a letdown.
Yeah.
That was a letdown fart.
Yeah,
I
not beefy enough
the
for
audio
you?
department. Yeah, you there's a wide variety of farts to choose from, and you just chose like a little like like a grandma
it doesn't have
fart.
the length. It doesn't have the depth of what they're building up to with the Rascalin. But I do
That
like
is
that they
true.
also have a social anxiety critter who does not want to hang out with the rest doing the Rascalin. But when said critter Blackie is in trouble and just screams to shatter glass, they are there. They are there to help.
They're there for
Blackie
their
out.
buddy.
Yeah.
Critters roll deep. Marcia makes it out the trapdoor onto the roof. They notice the fire coming up from the basement where the laundry's on fire. Marcia falls, but is saved by a cable that is wrapped around her ankle. And as said earlier, she will remain this way for the rest of the film, just swaying back and forth.
Just trying to reach your phone.
Hamstring your action hero. Like, it's very hard to identify who the actual hero of this film is supposed to be. It might be the critters. We'll get to that. But but yeah, it's like you have her being such a badass this whole time, and then all of a sudden just like slapstick. There we go, slapstick for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, you were moving the plot along way too quickly.
Yeah,
let's just kind of take you out.
You are far too competent for the film you're in.
Back in the basement, all the critters have rolled back to help out Blackie, and they do attack Anne on the way. And just as she's getting shot by spines, who swoops in to save the day? Charlie.
With a Tarzan yell and your requisite blasting of residential buildings to pieces.
Yeah.
Intergalactic bounty hunter.
Yep. He gets off one laser blast and his gun immediately jams. Great.
And did I miss it? Like, why is there a can of beans on his gun?
I was going to ask about that because I was just like, maybe I missed a critter throwing a can of beans that he was eating, but that doesn't make a lick of sense because how would it just like
it's part of there's some, like you said, there is deep Charlie lore between Critters 2 and Critters 3, and we need to know what happened.
Needs a strong word, but I see where you're coming from.
He is manufacturing high energy weapons. This might be the most important person on the planet right now.
With hobo beans.
Yeah,
right. Just a bindle and his
He's like
laser blaster.
Vulture in that Spider-Man movie. He's got all his alien tech.
Right.
Like my guess is because he's good with his hands. It's already been established in one that he's carrying on the fight on Earth with beans.
Beans and lasers.
Like doing his own custom mods.
All right, Dark Horse. That's it. 6-part comic series in between part 2 and part 3.
Yeah.
You know, Charlie's Adventures.
Absolutely.
We got to remember that Rosalie is smitten with Charlie as soon as she sees
she is
him.
very taken. And then, I mean, sorry, that shot where she's like, "Who's that hunk?" And he looks all tough for a second.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie. I see
Charlie,
it. I get it.
Not a bad looking dude. You got to give him a shot like that. It's like, he lives up to the shot they're trying to make. It's not a joke at him being ugly. It's like, no, he is pretty good looking dude.
Marcia is trying to make a phone call at the payphone, hanging upside down. And again, she'll just keep doing that for a while. So maybe I won't even come back to her.
Yeah.
Critters open the elevator door. One attacks Grandpa, but he manages to wrap it in a blanket, and Leo bashes it to death, but ends up getting spine to the neck. Did make me think of one of my favorite just minor gags in Christmas Vacation of, Grandpa just saying like, I'm going in there with him when Clark grabs a blanket with the squirrel. Yeah. Grandma takes out another with a meat cleaver finally, but when she chops it open, that's when the bubbles come out.
Yeah.
So that's your payoff for drinking dishwashing liquid.
And that was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. Like they spend a long time with that thing drinking dishwashing liquid.
Yeah.
Like
we get the shot of Charlie sitting there just like tense and bubbles settling on his shoulders. And I'm like, okay, I love this. I love hang on, we're in danger as soap bubbles fly past his face.
Annie's trying to reload the space gun for Charlie, and he finally gets to shoot another critter, which goes flying into the air and it explodes. They all escape onto the roof, and the kid's crystal is starting to glow again. So he's back in the movie, or his glowing rock is back in the movie again. He's just basically a sentient glowing rock. That kid. A critter rolls at Johnny, but Charlie dives at the critter and sails over the ledge in a slow motion kind of hero shot.
Yeah, that was structured pretty poorly.
Right.
It's like trying to figure out the geography of where characters are and
flying left, 4 feet from the kid, but he also kind of bumps the kid. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. There's a few different shots where it definitely feels like, well, this didn't work. Let's cover for this.
Yeah.
Like I think that was one of them. And then there's another Charlie stunt coming up here soon that feels like, oh, this must not have worked.
But I do love that, Charlie saves the kid, but the kid still manages to go over the ledge anyway. So
classic Charlie.
And I'll give him props on the shot of the kid falling. Like they waited till the last second to switch to the dummy, but man, when they switch to the dummy, it is obvious and it is hilarious. It's just like that leg isn't bending at all.
So there is a very dramatic, intense moment where Annie is trying to save that dummy and manages to pull him up. Charlie is also now dangling from a flagpole, and he ends up falling into the family truck and manages to walk away pretty okay for going through the roof and walking out the back.
Tapcons or redheads holding up that, like, if you've ever used anchors, whatever company manufactured that flagpole anchor, terrible job.
Let's get to the bottom of this.
First, John Bolt's calling you out.
Every single one fails at once. Like, come on. No, this ain't right.
But he's about to hit the truck, and then it cuts away to, like, you just see, like, the tires go down, or, like, the body go over the tires. It's like,
strange shot.
What happened with that stunt?
Yeah.
Right.
Was it just, I mean, because it didn't look like it was a composite where they're like, well, then we just sort of, it looks like he's going towards the trailer, but there's actually a mat there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just thinking of Maniac Cop 2 and that stunt.
I was literally just going to say that. I was like, you wanted a Maniac Cop 2 fire stunt going through
I got nothing. We don't have the budget for just a normal Cop 2. This is this ain't that kind of movie.
Firemen show up to save the day. Of course, there are no proof of the critters can be found. There's a couple of throwaway lines.
Charlie
Yes,
was
there
holding
is
the
though.
body.
Yes, Charlie
Yes.
was holding a body and
Right.
like yeah, it all burn up. Again, maybe this will be revealed in the 6-part Charlie verse of him being like, no, just torch the body. These things cannot get out.
I believe it
Right.
with the way this film ends that he is dedicated to a singular purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like I hope you let me down easier than that line from Marcia hanging there, just watching him eat it into the truck and like, can you help me out? Like, did you not see what I just did?
Not even check to see if he's okay. Just right there, just to tear him down.
Yep.
Dad decides in this moment that he should not move on and follow his dreams of becoming a train conductor.
It's just he knows he can't break up with them now.
Yeah.
Like too much stuff is going on. I was like, I'm going to look like a real jerk if I abandon my family after this. So
Totally. Josh's mother shows up and she's pretty smiley for having just lost her husband, which I feel like we just kind of glazed over that moment. I realized a few minutes ago, Briggs died. You know, I think it was one of those like off cameras. I barely even remember.
And I do again, the Marshall holding a flare and discovering his body. Beautiful shot. Like, lit only by a bright red flare. Like this is, there's some really, really cool shots in here.
She offers everyone money for a hotel.
Yep.
Of course, they take her up on it.
Rebuild the building, which, I mean, looking at it from today's perspective, that is the right financial decision, is to build housing and not a mall. Like she is a better investor than her dead husband ever was.
He's like a stepdad to Leonardo DiCaprio. So apparently like this was her second marriage. She clearly does not like the guy.
No.
Like does not care. And I wonder if this was like, if it was a Black Widow situation where she's like, was waiting for him to die anyway. And she's like, whatever. Like now I'm going to have to come up with an alibi.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I did with my first husband.
Yep. My kids provided for. I'm provided for.
Yeah. And I got all this sweet real estate now.
Yeah.
But Black Widow for justice.
There you go.
And that's where I'm going to come in with the critters maybe being the hero of this film, because they kill a property manager and a landlord, and people who get high, they distribute clean needles to get them high. They don't reuse needles. Like we're talking mutual aid critters here.
Harm reduction critters.
They save the apartment. You know.
Affordable housing. Like
absolutely.
I can't fault these critters.
Leftist heroes, the critters. Just get their shit like one of those like Che Guevara shirts, but it's a critter.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Charlie checks out the basement, and at this point, I was very much just ready for the credits to start rolling. And they start rolling, and just keeps rolling.
Yeah, the movie's not over yet. The credits are trying to beat the traffic. It's like ninth inning at a Padres game. And they're like, look, let's just get out of here. Like the movie's not over, but the credits just keep interrupting.
They keep interrupting, but it's like, well, this is more compelling than most any Marvel movie mid or end credit scenes. And
it's not really mid credits. This is like a mid credit scene. It's a mid scene credits.
Charlie's he's got some unfinished business down in the basement, and he finds a few critter eggs and sets them up to shoot at them. And then something on his belt just starts making an alarm noise, and he takes it off, and it projects a blue light. And oh my gosh, Ugg appears. And I didn't realize how much I missed Ugg until this moment. Right? He was such a calming, great presence to have back in, even just for a tiny, tiny little bit. And what's he say? He's basically just saying, like, I can tell when you're about ready to shoot something, essentially, and just says, like,
you are prohibited from terminating any transgalactic life form if it means total extinction of the species.
Oh, yeah, but they're dangerous. You taught me how dangerous they are.
Aggression factor is irrelevant. Those 2 eggs are the last 2 eggs.
We just mostly genocide, not all the way.
Yeah.
We push it right up to the line.
But we're going to save these last 2. So we have there's these 2 critter eggs left. We're going to put them in our zoo. I don't know what. We're going to put them in a place where they can get out later, probably for part 4.
Yeah.
But we need you to do that.
Right. So like a little collection pod is fired down, and that's where we end.
And of course they fire down a pod and it destroys a bunch of stuff on the way down.
Of course it does.
It goes through the building that they just fought to save. I mean, but watching these, this scene with credits in the middle of it, like this guy was the town drunk 5 years ago. And now he is fairly competently clearing a close quarters situation, like fearlessly hunting aliens through this basement. Like Charlie's arc is amazing in these movies.
I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone wants to work with him because he keeps getting left behind or fired from being a sheriff or whatever else happens. But he's doing the work. So good for Charlie.
Amazing. I love it.
Well, this was a very low body count movie. So let's very quickly honor our dead. Frank Longo, played by Jeffrey Blake, eaten alive by critters. Briggs, played by William Dennis Hunt, eaten alive by critters. 2. 2.
I think was that basically the first one? There's only a couple of deaths.
I guess so. I can't recall, but this definitely, it seemed smaller than most of the long lists that I recite for honoring the dead this time. It was in and out this time, but that really drove home the kind of gateway horror, you could call it, for this, which was very much the case, maybe for you when you watched it when you were a kid. I mean, I feel like you could throw this on for any kid these days. I mean, there's nothing particularly gruesome about this.
Yeah.
You know.
The kills aren't up close gory. There's, like you said, there's rascaling. Kids are going to laugh at a farting critter every time. It is, an early dip your toe in social issue awareness horror, which does become, over the next 30 years becomes way more like the horror is the actual people, not the monster. It's just set on that backdrop.
Yeah. The subtext becomes the text.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I did not like this one as much as the first two, but when I started thinking about it just on its own terms, I'm like, yeah, it's a fine little critter movie. It's pretty well shot in places, like you were saying.
I mean, it's because you're going to video, it is a step down in terms of budget and probably time frame that they were able to do this stuff. Again, if they're doing 2 movies back to back, it's going to limit what you can do. It's my least favorite of the series so far, but that's not a huge drop. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it really went off the rails here. It's like something you expect for going straight to video. Yeah.
It's very, very different film. I mean, we go from guys with big, extending space laser guns to just like, we got people fighting with knives in a building here. Like a grittier version of this film could be harrowing to watch.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a little bit Attack the Block in that way, but even smaller. But yeah, I also I think that's a good tell too. We had guys fighting with lasers. Now we have a guy with the lasers with beans on it because we had to make this work.
Make it on beans. Yeah. Maybe that's their a little metaphor for them saying how what their budget was like.
Right.
So,
it's the tell. But obviously, this goes right into Critters 4. I have no idea what that means. I have not looked ahead. I don't know the premise of part 4 at all, but I'm hoping that it's pretty Charlie-centric. If he's kind of in charge of, maybe we'll get more UGG.
Yeah.
It's obvious that the critter eggs are going to go somewhere off the planet. I don't know if that means, I'm sure they don't have the budget to spend the entire time in space, but who knows? So
or it could be like a warehouse in space. Trust us, we're in space, but this is a
railing kills. I hope a lot of railing kills.
It's just cube. It's like, change the light color. We're in a different room. Here we go. Yeah. Wipe the blood off. Go.
Right.
Are you guys going to do the cube series?
I imagine at some point. Yeah.
How many are there?
Right. I think there's 4.
4. I think. Yeah, at least.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, yeah. It's our duty, I suppose. Anyway, back to Critters, and we've got 2 more. Critters 4, Critters Attack. And then, if we kind of have the time to watch the YouTube show, I guess there's that. We'll see how inspired we are for that one. I did want to briefly shout out Gareth Ladd, who wrote to us, and sounds like there was he's had a similar nostalgia about watching these from when he was a kid, but also that idea that I thought was interesting that he wrote about in his email to us about when you hear about a series of movies when you're a kid and they sound gnarly and bloody and amazing with monsters and everything, and then you finally watch it and it's kind of like a lower budget type of thing, you're like, that's a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But then having come back around to loving them all over again for what they are.
Yeah, I had a moment where in the first one where I remember overhearing like it being a trailer for it being on it like Blockbuster. And there's a part where the kid says something about like mom's got a hole in her neck, or like there was a line about like there's being a hole, but also the critters are getting bigger, something like that. And I just like combined that to be that the mom had a hole in her neck that's getting bigger. And that was like this existential like body horror for a 5-year-old of like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, yeah, that's a real bummer real quick before we get too far away from it, that this is the first Critters that doesn't have Scott. I'm blanking on
Scott Grimes.
That does not have Scott Grimes in it. Yeah. And I kind of missed him. And I mentioned this earlier. So they try to make like this little Charlie and Johnny, they try to like have this little connection between them, because if you're a little kid and this like clownish man bursts forth from the ground and has cool stuff, you'd be like, that guy's awesome. I don't remember him. But at the end, they try to like tie it a little, like that it means a lot to him too, to Charlie too. And almost this like, you're going to be the new Scott Grimes. You're going to love me.
It's like, no, this kid is not the new Scott Grimes.
Yeah.
Also, that moment is almost like his name's Charlie. And I'm like, man, is this All Dogs Go to Heaven? What is going on here at the end of this movie? It's ridiculous. But, and it's funny. I remember wanting to say when you guys were mentioning Scott Grimes before, my first like actual exposure to him beyond when I was a kid watching Critters 2 was, Band of Brothers, and everybody's like, oh yeah, you know, he does this comedy, he's the Orville, he's American Dad, I think, and Family Guy, but it's like, man, he's Don Malarkey in Band of Brothers, and that guy goes through some shit in that series.
I've never watched it.
Good.
I still need to watch it.
Man.
I've always kind of meant to watch that. Yeah, man, it's absolutely worth it. And I mean, I'm due for a rewatch. I love that series. I'm one of those 42-year-old guys. Yep. I wasn't there, but I love Band of Brothers. Yep.
So, yeah.
Give me that World War II stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, all right, John, thanks so much for joining us and being our Critters 3 expert. So where can people find you? Tell the good people about your other show that you want to talk about.
Yeah. Open Pike Night is a Star Trek Strange New Worlds podcast. We started it just to review each 10 episodes every season, and it's kind of turned into a much more in-depth podcast with interviews of cast and crew, creators, writers, and it has definitely ballooned to something bigger than any of us ever expected it to. We are waiting on a 2-year cliffhanger now between season 2 and season 3 with the writers' strike. So right now we're covering Discovery season 2, where Anson Mount's Christopher Pike and Ethan Peck's Spock and Rebecca Romaine's number 1 first showed up. So we're covering those episodes, hopefully some more interviews, and and it's just been a hell of a ride. So
it's my understanding that Strange New Worlds is a lot sort of different from other new Trek things. Yeah, that it's a lot like more.
It is episodic. You can start one episode anywhere, and you're not like, there's little character arc stuff that you may not know, but you can watch one episode and still enjoy the whole thing. It is not Discovery where you have to watch the whole season or the whole series. It is not dark and moody like Picard. And then, you know, Lower Decks and Prodigy are their own thing being animated. But I'll tell you what, Lower Decks has one of my favorite all-time Trek episodes. And if you discount that because it's a cartoon, you're missing fantastic Star Trek.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I've watched one episode. I enjoyed it. I just didn't go back for more, but now I got to do that in between Strange New
Worlds is old, new Star Trek that feels like old Star Trek, and it's meant to, and they do it right. They do it well.
I think I watched a couple episodes of that on a plane, and that was my only exposure to it. I liked one, and I was a little bit more lukewarm on the other, but what I did like about it is I could tell right away it was more like older Trek than the moody Picard, which I just had a real hard time with, and Discovery, which I didn't totally latch onto either. But I did kind of like the aesthetic of Strange New Worlds better. It just felt like, I don't know, a little bit more happy. You know,
if I had to show somebody their first Star Trek, I would say come to Strange New Worlds, start here. And because it's not the earliest, Enterprise is earlier than it chronologically, but it's before Kirk. So it's like, okay, if you want to like start going in a timeline, you got to go watch the original one now. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Thanks to all of y'all out there who are watching Critters 1 through 5 with us, and keep with us. And on these, sometimes I just wonder when I was watching, the critter farting. I was just like, I hope people are still kind of watching along with us. On these. It's not quite the intensity of Leatherface, but it's still under the horror umbrella.
Well,
so,
knowing our fans, it's like, now it's getting good. Finally.
Oh, there you go.
Exactly.
Yes, there you go.
And I do have to say this because I do enjoy your guys' show. The worst horror movie I ever saw was terrible. Terrible. But I'm thrilled I saw it. It was called Shatter Dead. It was a 0-budget zombie movie that a friend of mine dug up back in the Netflix had every possible DVD you could ever want days and would subject us to those movies. Oh, it's bad.
Ooh. Shattered Ed.
It's bad.
Shattered Dead.
Don't tempt me with a good time here.
Yeah.
But
look, I just got done watching Hell of the Living Dead, so like I'm primed to like anything is going to be better than that.
Man, it's pretty rough.
Right.
I mean, it's college movie level production.
Those can be a little rough. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's a little rough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. John T. Bold suggests you run, don't walk to see Shattered Ed. And let us.
Oh, sorry. Shattered Dead.
Shattered Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even on Tubi.
Nope. Yeah. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but it was the, I can get DVDs just mailed to me and scraping the bottom of that barrel back in, we're talking 2000, 8, 9, something like that.
Oh
yeah.
Now I'm gonna I have to go see this movie.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot.
I guess I won't be coming back. I'm sorry.
We'll just have a struggle session where we just yell at you for an hour and a half.
Hell yeah.
Right.
Hell yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, pop in that Critters 4 and get ready to take that in before the next time we're back. And until then, you can find us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. So until then, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.